Wow, Todd, you outdid yourself, buddy. Even that got me all worked up. Hello, folks. I'm John Shenholzer, one of the co-founders of Care Talk. We're live tonight. Very excited. We have a wonderful show lined up tonight, the night before Halloween. And I'm going to let Honesty take it over from here, and she'll tell you more about what's going to happen tonight. Happy Halloween. I'll see you shortly.
Sure. Thank you guys for joining. That was super cool, Todd. I'm a big Halloween Christmas chick, so I really wanted to kind of focus on the addiction solutions of removing the mask of addiction. You know, for me, my personal story, like I wore so many masks in addiction, and a ton of them in early recovery and throughout my recovery too. So I think it's really important for us to get the addiction solutions out there, like removing that mask. It's 2020. Everything this whole year has been crap practically. So let's remove the mask and get some addiction solutions out there. And I'm a little unicorn tonight. So our first guest, how this rolls, our guests will speak for 8 minutes and give you an addiction solution. So hopefully you will be able to walk away with 8 different or the same, but different perspectives of addiction solution. Of course, always comment. I'm going to do my best to respond to those. But our first guest, drum roll, would be, I got the opportunity to go over to Peter's place last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't even know my days anymore, to see the recovery house that Shauntelle Rose Hammonds started. And it was a beautiful house. And I'm not going to take any time from her. And I would love for her to talk about her addiction solution and what she's doing here in Richmond, Virginia. Shauntelle? Oh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shauntelle. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a person in long-term recovery. So for today, I kind of want to talk a little bit about my story before getting sober and what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, and how that ties into what I am doing. So my recovery date is September 14th, 2015. When I got into recovery, I was homeless. I was living on the street. I didn't have anywhere to go, and I didn't have much support. It was just me. And to go back a little bit. I had tried to receive recovery supports before. Recovery supports were not built for an individual like me. I identify as a Black queer trans femme. And most places didn't know how to truly support me. So when I got into recovery, I had to navigate these spaces myself. And for me, that was very, very hard. It was a lot of um, um, building programs that were not there. There was a lot of challenges. There was a lot of facing a lot of stigma and calling people out and making people feel uncomfortable. I had to step into the room and make sure that my voice was heard, not just for me, but for other people who look like me, who carry the same identities as me, and those who have not came into the room yet, who would need the space that I was trying to build for myself. My recovery journey was not easy. I don't think anyone's recovery journey was easy. When we come into recovery, or when I come into recovery, I come with a lot of baggage, trauma, and things like that that I have to navigate. But when I stepped into recovery spaces, I also had to deal with that trauma and things that came along with being the odd person out. So for me, I decided that I no longer wanted to sit back and be quiet. I no longer wanted to watch people like me continue to get pushed out of recovery spaces. I no longer wanted to watch my friends die. So I started um, making solutions. My solution was to become a certified peer recovery support specialist. I went to school to be a certified substance abuse counselor, and now I am currently enrolled at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, pursuing my degree in social work, because we need people like this in these spaces. I need to be in this spaces. Other people who have these identities need to be in this space, because if we're not there, we're not at the table. There's no one there to speak for us or to talk about the things that we need and what's truly missing, right? And recovery, we talk about there's nothing about us without us. And how can we truly support marginalized people if they're not sitting at the table raising their voices and talking about what they truly need, right? So as I continue to push and strive and step into these spaces, I set into a lot of recovery spaces that was missing the mark. I lived in recovery housing that was missing the mark. I lived in recovery housing that I had to hide who I was in order to have a safe place to live so I would no longer be homeless. And for me, when I truly decided I would no longer hide myself into recovery, it took me having to move out of recovery housing in order to live in my truth, right? When we talk about recovery and we talk about healing people, and the solution of healing people is making them whole and making them better, we cannot truly heal people if they can't bring their whole entire self into the room. If they're leaving an identity out, we're not truly serving them or healing them. So my solution to that was that I created my own shit. I got a group of people together, and I decided that other people who had the same concerns that I had, other people who were allies, other people who wanted to help, other people who knew and seeing the struggles of not just me, but other queer individuals who were getting pushed out of the rooms, pushed out of recovery spaces, and it really came to light to me this year. It was in February of this year when I had an individual who identified as trans who was who was trying to seek recovery support called me because someone gave this individual my phone number. And when I answered the phone, I never met this individual. I didn't know this individual. And she was on the phone crying and said, "I've tried everything. I've been to all these recovery houses and no one will accept me. What can I do?" And it took 2 days on the phone, calling places, trying to get her into places that she could not receive a safe place to stay. And then when she did get moved into a place, she was immediately put out within a week without any warning, without any reason why, that she was no longer allowed to stay there. And I was tired of that. I was tired of seeing that. I was tired of experiencing that. And I stepped into this arena knowing that like it was going to be a fight. I knew that like I was going to have to challenge people. I knew people were going to be uncomfortable. I was ready to make people feel uncomfortable. I refused to be quiet. I refused to play nice. Um, and when I stepped into this space and I said that I was going to do this, I was met with a lot of pushback. I was met with a lot of people saying that this does not need to happen. Why? We welcome these people in here. We support these people. We give them a space. But then when I talk to these individuals more one on one, then I'm just like, are you truly supporting them? Or are you just giving them a space, right? So it came with me starting to educate people, start doing webinars, start talking, setting on panels and stuff, and actually educating people how to truly support LGBTQIA plus people, not only the LGBTQ community, but also BIPOC people, right? Because the way that this linear way of support that we bring to this table and say that we're are supporting or providing support to people does not, because these individuals come into the room with a lot of different trauma than white cisgender heterosexual people come with. And we have to truly note that, acknowledge that, and pay attention to that and actually treat that. So for me, my solution came with just started challenging these norms, coming into these places, letting people know that this is not okay, making them feel uncomfortable because I have been made to feel uncomfortable in recovery spaces for so damn long that it's okay for y'all to feel uncomfortable right now. It was okay for me to tell them, I just made it okay for me to tell them that you are wrong, that the support that you're offering people is not the support that they need, is not catering to them, and you're potentially leaving people on the street to die. And when I started Peter's Place RVA, I started with a friend of mine, that I met when I tried to access recovery support. And this individual tried to access recovery support with me. And this individual was told that he needed to calm down. I needed to calm down. We needed to hide our queerness in order to get the support that we need. And that just didn't work. And we both relapsed and were out for a while. I made it back, but this individual didn't. He died. He died like so many other people, and that doesn't have to be. So my solution today is to change the narrative, actually listen to people, bring the community in, and help people actually access recovery support that they deserve. Thank you for letting me share.
Yes. Thank you so much. That is awesome. We would love to have you, like John said, at McGill and have a meeting with you and see how we can help. See how we can help for the future, of Richmond. So I'm super, super, super excited. And I love your earrings. So next we have Omri. We've got to meet a few different times. She'll tell you, her story and her addiction solution, but I truly, truly love advocates for recovery and being able to be in these spaces and these meetings and all this stuff that we do now at Zoom. But I've just been able to meet some super cool people throughout this process that are professional and love those that are in recovery. So I will give you Omri so she can give you her addiction solution.
Awesome. Thank you. Really happy to be here. Nice to see everyone. So my name's Omri. I am a person in long-term recovery. I stepped into recovery on May 8th, 2013. And I guess just to give a little bit of background, I grew up here, locally. I grew up in Chesterfield County in Virginia, and I came from, I'm a child of divorce, and I got some trauma in my history and all of that, and I chose to deal with it. Using multiple addictions, drugs and alcohol wasn't the first thing that I tapped into. I had really terrible mental health disorders growing up that kind of controlled my life. And not a lot of people, Shauntelle really honed in on that as a POC person, a person of color. It wasn't talked about enough with me growing up, that sometimes my brain can work a little differently than everyone else's, especially in my home and in my church, all of that. So I found other, addictions that were harmful to help deal with some of that. And then when those addictions don't work, I finally kind of evolved to drugs and alcohol, and it was a different type of home that I had never been in before. I never felt like I belonged anywhere, but when I used, I felt like I belonged, and I felt like I had a purpose. I felt like I was just like everyone else. I wasn't that girl that came from a broken home. I wasn't that girl that spent more time in courtrooms and talking to attorneys and CPS and all that stuff. I wasn't that girl. I was just like everybody else, and that's what I wanted. I did not know, though, that drugs and alcohol were going to take such a hold on me, and I wasn't going to be able to get control back. I always tell people addiction is like we're dancing on this threshold. From on one side is I want it. I want, some ice cream. I want a lollipop. I want this. And the other side of the threshold is I need it. I have to have it. And I can't tell you exactly when I crossed that threshold to I need it. I have to have it with the drugs and alcohol. But I can tell you right now that I've never gone back to the other side, because that's not how addiction works. Once I got that taste, of that solution, that was it. And it brought me to my knees, like I said, on May 8th, 2013. And I actually had the opportunity out of a drug overdose or a suicide attempt, actually, to go to rehab in Florida. And that was my first introduction into recovery. I'd never been in an institution before. Before that, I'd sat in counseling offices and things like that, but never something as official, I guess, as that. I was very uneducated about addiction. I didn't even really use that word to describe what I'd done. I was 21 years old. I want to put that out there as a young person. If there's any young people watching, there are such things as young addicts and alcoholics. It is not like an old person's disease. I'm going to try to keep some I statements. I didn't have to lose a marriage, lose cars, lose a house, lose multiple jobs, lose multiple decades off of my life in order for me to be addicted. I started using hardcore at 18 when I went off to college, and by 21 it had kicked my behind and I didn't want it anymore. So I just needed to put that out there. And so when I said, when I got into the rehab, I thought that I was just a college kid that used the wrong, combination of stuff, that all I got to do is just detox my system and then go at it again, successfully. And I think I realized, like, shortly thereafter, I had been there for some weeks and I had attended the classes and group therapy sessions. And that was the first time I'd actually met a recovery coach. I didn't even know that's what she was, but I was just so enamored by her. And I'll get to that a little bit later. They were telling me, like, no, that's not how this works. You have this thing in your brain. It's a phenomenon of craving. And once you tap into it with these substances, it doesn't stop and it will take you down, and that was also when I realized I don't know if I could ever use again, but of course I wasn't like dancing with that thought because it was so overwhelming at the time. So I just focused on one day at a time, and that was really, really, really helpful. After I left treatment, I too faced homelessness down in Richmond. I lived with my dealers at the time, so I couldn't, when I left for treatment, so I couldn't go back there, so I was homeless. I was homeless for a little bit, moved into a recovery house. It was a great, I didn't do one of the mainstream recovery houses. There was actually an addict in long-term recovery who is still in long-term recovery today, who bought a house and decided to make it a recovery house, had 25 of us come through the house. There's only 3 of us, 25 to 30 of us come through the house. I can't remember the exact number. And there's only 3 of us that are still sober to this day. I have no idea what happened to the rest of the girls. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay in that house for about 4 months. And then I became homeless again. And I really just want to harp on the fact that I also was homeless in sobriety. My active addiction did not cause my homelessness. I was homeless in sobriety. And I stayed sober through that experience. And so I will I'll touch on the solution that really did help me upon discharge. Well, for one, I met my first recovery coach. Her name was Heidi. And I just remember seeing her, and she was super pretty and her skin was glowing. And at that time I was withdrawing and shaking, and my skin was doing gross stuff, and couldn't keep food down. And I was a hot mess. And I saw this woman and she had what I wanted. And I remember asking her about her job and what she did. And she explained it to me. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I could never do anything like that because I'm not as cool as you, but I will remember that. Foreshadowing. And so when I got out of treatment, they set me up, or they referred me to a primary care physician for my first appointment 3 weeks out of treatment. They gave me an NA meeting list because that was the fellowship that I identified with at the time. Meeting list they had me outline all of my meetings for the first week that I was out. And they set me up, of course, my mental health prescriptions, but they had called a couple of recovery houses in the area, but they didn't have any open beds. So I did NA meetings for a little bit, because like I said, that was what I identified with, something that I realized. And I realized that, Narcotics Anonymous is a very inclusive program in terms of substances. And the readings, it talks about how alcohol is a drug. But I realized after going to these meetings, for me personally, that alcohol was the source. Alcohol was the thing that always came first for me. I hardcore identify as an addict, but alcohol was, it was always alcohol that like I started with, and then it was the drugs that came afterwards. So I decided to switch to AA, and that's actually where I've stayed. I mean, I'm tell you right now, the fellowship has definitely come through for me in a lot of different ways. I don't really want to like spend a whole lot of time talking about it because I could talk about it for hours upon hours upon hours. But one time, you know, in particular, when I was really ready to give up, some of the women in the program really reached out their hand to me and offered me the support that I needed in order for me to feel like I could continue on in my recovery journey. So I do believe in sober network and using that sober network when the stinking thinking starts. So about 2 years into my recovery journey, I was doing my sobriety job, and I say it like that because it's a field that I know that I could get a job in. So like, and I'm good at, and I've been doing childcare for like ever. Like I started taking care of kids when I was 13 years old, and I had worked in every realm of childcare that you could think of. I was in that realm of work, and I was so unhappy. I hated going to work every day. It wasn't filling me up. It wasn't filling my cup. And my mom came across a job posting for somebody who is a peer recovery specialist, somebody who is in recovery, who works in the recovery realm and has some time and has some experience using multiple recovery pathways personally, but also has knowledge of multiple recovery pathways, and it is willing to help other people. And I mean, there's a bigger definition and more official definition, but that's like kind of it in a nutshell. I decided I had none of the pre-qualifications that they asked for at the time of the interview. So please don't let that be something that discourages you from going and applying for a job. They asked for a college degree. They asked for 3 years of recovery, and I had 2.5. They asked for to be able to use like Excel and like all these computer programs and stuff. I didn't have that experience. I didn't have a computer. This is my work computer that we're using at 7 years. I still don't have a computer, but it's fine. And a couple of other things, but I went after it because it was what I wanted. And it was with the Chesterfield CSB. And I interviewed for this job. I mean, I studied different recovery pathways, so I was able to talk about them competently, and I got the job. And that is where I have been for the last 3+ years. I am a certified peer recovery specialist for the Chesterfield CSB. I'm also licensed through the state of Virginia with the Board of Counseling to practice. I put quotes on that because it's just weird to say. I love my job and I love my life today because I've been in recovery. I was able to afford my own home. I am sitting in my own home right now. I'm not out on the streets anymore or crashing on people's couches or going like I was doing before. I used to get dented cans at meetings. There was a meeting at 210 Madison Street down in Richmond that used to give out dented cans at the top of their meeting, and I used to go there, and that would be my dinner. And I mean, I did what I had to do in order to survive, but I don't have to do that anymore. And so I just want to be like Shauntelle said, like a voice for women, for color women, for Black women, for Black queer women, for queer women. Like, I identify with all of those things. I'm also a mother. I became a mother in recovery, which has been one of my biggest blessings in the entire world. I've also became a wife, and I love it. I mean, I have this capacity to love and change. And And it only was because I stepped into recovery. I support myself solely. And that's something that I never thought would be possible for somebody like me. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity to speak with everyone about just a couple of the solutions that I've come upon in my own recovery journey. Thank you.
So thank you so much. You're an awesome woman in recovery, and thank you for all you do for so many different people. And it's just amazing to be able to come together like that. And your daughter is precious. So our next speaker is one of my favorite little guys that I get to see at McShin, actually, and he's been around for a long time now, and he has a powerful message as well in addiction solutions. He's got probably a couple just from his own personal story. So with that, I give you Ben Cramer.
Hi guys, thank you, Honesty. I just want to say, when Honesty first asked me to write a bio, I read over it, and it kind of looked like a bio for a Tinder profile, which is kind of weird. So I bring that up because when she asked me to do this, I really didn't think there was anything that I had to offer anybody, anything that I could say that could help anybody in this situation. But that is the root of part of my disease, is that it's filled with insecurities, low self-esteem, and a negative outlook on life. My name is Ben, and I'm a person in recovery. And what that means to me is I haven't used any drugs or alcohol since March 26, 2018. So I've worn a mask my whole life, even before I ever started using drugs. I'm left-handed, so growing up, I've always kind of felt like, kind of like an outcast and somebody that was different from everybody, because I would be like the only one, if not the only one, that was left-handed in the class. So I kind of felt like I was pushed away from the group, and just felt like I didn't belong. I was the kid that had to learn things the hard way. I was the one that would go and touch the hot stove over and over again, knowing exactly what was going to happen, right? So insanity. So underlying with my disease of addiction, it comes with like anxiety and depression, and part of my using revolved around trying to like numb and ignore those pains and feelings and stuff. So along came with my addiction and numbing the pain, came with criminal charges and going to jail. So insanity played in my life for a long time, because I kept using and I kept getting locked up over and over and over again. So when I got locked up for like the unmillionth time, I had heard of a program within the jail, like a recovery pod. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, the only reason I wanted to get moved to that pod was because I wanted to get out of a 18-hour lockdown. I wanted a big screen TV and something about coffee. So I was all about it. That was the only reason that I wanted to do it at first. So as I'm in there, there are these people that are in recovery coming in and facilitating these groups and meetings and stuff. And there was something that attracted me to these people. They had normal lives, they had jobs, and it didn't consist of robbing people or selling drugs. And it started to attract me to them. Like, how the hell is this possible? How can I have what they want? And that's the first time I ever found that attraction to the program. And then something started to stick, right? Like something started to kind of absorb into it. Like I started thinking differently. I started feeling differently. So I started to realize that, there was something more than just using drugs. Like for a long time, I thought that I could control it. I could just use every once in a while, because that insanity kept coming back, because I would go to jail and then I would get released, and within like a month or so, I was already using drugs again. Apparently I like jail. Like, you know, I could get cheap food and really crappy tattoos for really cheap. But you know, I just kept going back and back and back. That insanity just kept playing over and over again. But this time something was different. Something started to resonate with myself. Like I was getting tired and I was just over having to do this over and over again. So shortly after, you know, I did this jail program, I was released to an RCO, and you know, I started to see firsthand how these people were living. I was learning a lot of cool stuff when I was in this recovery pod, but living it and talking about it behind a closed locked door is completely different. I started to build, you know, what people would consider like a network and a group of friends and stuff. And I started to build this foundation. And it was scary at first because like a long time, you know, I was an outcast. As a convicted felon, society has labeled me as an outcast, like a stigma, a stain on society. You know, I was, you know, not supposed to have a good job. I'm not supposed to vote. I'm not supposed to carry a gun. You know, there's this stigma that you know, movies and TV shows and everything had put on people like myself or felons. But, you know, my direct result of going to jail was like, you know, my disease and wanting, you know, if it wasn't possession charges, it was, you know, stealing and doing whatever I could to get the next one. So actually like living a normal life was like really scary for me. I really had no idea what that was like. A little bit after that, you know, I tried my hardest to work a program, and I really thought that it was just about like not using drugs. I didn't realize that like there was something more to it. So once again, you know, I took my will back, and I stopped working a program. I stopped going to meetings, and I relapsed, and I stayed out for longer. And just as, you know, for a lot of people, my hole got deeper and bigger, and it was harder to get out of. If it wasn't for having a locked door behind me, I would have never be able to initially get clean. So whoever's watching this, whoever's out there is able to stay clean and get clean without having to go to jail, I give you a lot of credit because you're a lot stronger than me, because I have to be forced into a jail cell to actually, you know, before I can actually start getting clean and stuff. This is where I found recovery was completely sick, dope sick, like the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, sitting in that jail cell. This is where I found my rock bottom. And once again, you know, insanity had taken over, and I had found myself back in there doing the exact same stuff over and over again. And actually, in reality, knew what was going to happen, but I did it anyways. So for the millionth time, I found myself in jail again with numerous new charges, and just with nothing. So of course, once again, in the grips of my disease, like I wanted to get out of jail. I didn't want to go to jail. I was tired of it. I was done. So once again, I was released to the RCO that I was at the time. So for about 16 months, I was going in and out, going to court, getting all these cases and trials and done over with and stuff. And in the process, you know, like the longer I stayed clean, the more, you know, of a network and people that I met that like supported me. You know, I didn't feel as much of an outcast anymore. Like I had people that supported me and would, you know, be there for me. So 16 months clean. Once again, I found myself having to go back to jail, but clean this time, right? Not only did I find like my rock bottom in a jail cell, like I found my strength there. Because of course, like being the good, you know, addict that I am, me having to go to court and being clean 16 months, like I had convinced myself like this judge there's no way he's going to throw me back in jail. Right. I've been clean. Like why else would he throw me back in jail? Like I've done exactly what, he wanted jail to do for me. But in reality, there's things that I have to deal with the wreckage of my past, and I had to do it. So I had to go back to jail and do 6 months. Now, when I did these 6 months, he told me I was able to do work release. Like at this point, I've had a job for almost a year and a half. I'm doing great. So he gave me the opportunity to do a work release program. Now, this work release program was a lot different than the recovery program when I first discovered, a program and being in recovery. This was just work release. Like I would go out to work and I would come back and I would go back to the jail. Right. So for 6 months, I did this. I would go out into the world with society, be able to talk with the network and the people that I love and cared about, be with the guys that I work with who supported me, and then turn around and have to go back to the jail. Right. So when I'm in jail, I don't know about a lot of other people, but I know for me, like I want to put on this front. I want to put on this mask of being, this hard individual that like doesn't, give a crap about anything. Like I want to walk around with my chest out, gritting on people, and give me the evil eye because I want to be tough because I'm in jail. Like soft people don't go to jail, right? So for 6 months, I was bouncing back and forth from being who I thought I was and who I wanted to be to being an inmate or who I thought I needed to be. 6 months, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth every day for 6 months, and it royally messed with my head. For 6 months, every day, I put on a mask every day. And I almost have some PTSD from it because I still don't know like fully who I am. Like I'm confused. Like I still wake up with like nightmares sometimes that I'm still locked up in jail. Like it really did a number on me. Now the difference was between this and before, I wasn't able to work like an active program like I wanted to. Yes, I was able to contact, my network on the phone and stuff. I wasn't able to go to physically to meetings. I wasn't able to sit down with a sponsor and do any kind of work. So for 6 months, I was just lost and I was confused. But like the biggest blessing I got out of this is like I said, that network. I had people that were there for me whenever I needed them. One of my best friends in the world is from Maine. Like I haven't known him from nobody or nothing until about 2 years ago. And he would pick me up from the jail every morning and drop me off for 6 months without question, without asking for anything in return. And I don't think I would ever be able to build that kind of bond and a friendship with people like I have in recovery. Like I'm closer with some of these people I've been friends with in the last 2 years that are closer with me than people I've known my whole entire life. And like I'm blessed to have that, right? And so I get out from doing these 6 months, and I didn't want to be around anybody. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to isolate. I would just go to and from work. I would go just like I was still in jail. Like I would go to work and I would go back to the recovery house and I would just go to sleep, like working 16-hour days. I wanted to ignore like these feelings and these emotions that were like going on in my head. Like I just didn't want to like face reality. And but just like when I was in that jail program, like something started to stick with me. If I can get honest and sit down with another human being and tell them exactly how I feel, like I can take that mask off, even if it is just for a little bit. Like if I get down to the nitty gritty and get completely honest with another human being, like I can remove that mask just for a little bit and get to the root of like what's really going on inside of me. And it's stuff like step work and sponsorship and like a network that's helped get me through all of this, I'm grateful to like where I am today. I really am. Like I said, like I found my rock bottom in a jail cell, but I also found my strength. I tell people all the time that I'm grateful for jails, institutions, and death, because if it wasn't for those three things, like, I would not be as strong as I am today. Like, it's been a serious uphill battle and a struggle, but it's been so worth it. It really has. I've never been more grateful. And like, you know, jails where I found recovery, like institutions was where I learned about it. And like, unfortunately, like, I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of people that I care about, like, deeply in this process. And it's like a constant reminder of like that does not have to be me. And picking up the next one, like, terrifies me, because I know I'm not gonna be lucky enough to go back to jail to detox and stuff. My friends and family are gonna have to bury me, and I don't want that, because I've seen it too much. I've never like experienced something like this before in my life. Like, I started using like at a very early age, and so like I'm still like that lost like little boy inside. So I'm still trying to figure out who I am and how to be a man today. Like, I'm trying, I really am. Like, I wish I could tell you all this good stuff. I wish I tell you I had degrees and you know, I've been to school, but like, I work in a warehouse. I drive a forklift for a living, you know. But I keep coming back, and I keep learning, and I keep pushing forward to do the best that I can every day. Like I said, if you're out there right now and like, you know, you've got a couple days clean, like, it definitely gets better. If you're just getting out of a jail program or getting out of jail from doing some months, like, trust me, I know what it's like, and it definitely gets better. There's way more to it than using and drinking. Like, I want to learn how to live today. Like, addiction taught me how to like survive on the street and do a lot of messed up things, but like, recovery has brought me to a new way of like to completely how to live. Like, survival and living are two completely different things for me. And it's been a beautiful process, and I thank like Honesty and John for giving me the opportunity to find recovery. And I said, thanks for letting me share.
Ha 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 ha! Love this Halloween theme. That was amazing, Benjamin. You are awesome, and don't ever, ever, ever forget that. So we love you very much. You did great. You did great. That was awesome. Our last guest before our break, we're going to take a brief intermission after the beautiful Katrina King speaks, and she really doesn't need any introduction. If you know her on social media, she is a huge, powerful woman voice for the recovery movement. She works her butt off pretty much 24 hours a day for this movement. So we love you very much. So I will give you Katrina.
Hold on. So
Oh,
there it goes. I said, whose idea was that that little sound, that laugh there? John's or yours? That's awesome. So, gosh, I'm exhausted. Forgive me. Did a round trip to Chicago, so I'm still recovering from that. But so I think that I don't want to get too much into my story. I really want to kind of focus on, I guess, some solutions, you know, because it's not a one size fits all. But basically, you know, I was a person, you know, I'd lost my parents as a child. I was from California, lost my parents in a canal accident on New Year's Eve. They were driving home to us and crashed in a canal and drowned. And that basically set in motion a whole custody battle. And we ended up having to leave the state of California to move to Virginia to live with a grandfather that I had never met, who ended up being very abusive. And he was a Korean War veteran. And wasn't long after that abuse started that eventually I was removed from the home. I became a ward of the state. And you know, my substance use history kind of started then. I was, you know, I drank a lot and, you know, not really smoking the weed too much, but drink, you know, anything that was hardcore was interesting to me. weed was just too weak for me. I didn't even smoke cigarettes because I tried it once and I thought this is what it, I didn't get a buzz or anything from it. I knew it was in my DNA. My grandfather was an alcoholic. And so throughout my teenage years, I struggled, I ran away a lot, went through quite a few challenges. And I had one time ended up with a friend in Northern Virginia, and we're at this crack house that she's invited me to. And I'm like, oh my God, like I thought I'd seen some things. And there was the owners of the house were they were heroin users. And the girl who I later became friends with, every other day she's like in withdrawal so bad, and they're fighting and carrying on going to DC and copping or Baltimore and coming back, and then or dying, and they're dragging her to the shower. And I remember thinking and saying out loud, I will never touch that stuff. Like, who does that? I'll do freebase coke, whatever. I will never do that. Fast forward, I end up finding out I'm pregnant with my daughter, and my life changes instantly because she gave me that purpose that I did not have before that. She became my best friend, my life, and I turned it around. And I went from that sort of nomadic lifestyle, became emancipated at age 17, started going to college, was also had a job. And, fast forward, I ended up with my son. And I was always a little bit of a quote unquote workaholic, but I do believe in the value of hard work. And so I worked myself up through a lot of challenges because, it was sort of in the account executive world, it was a man's world at that point in telecom. And I ended up working for Sprint and Nextel as a corporate account executive, worked with like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Howard University, I mean, you name it. And was very successful and 6-figure salary. And about that time, my daughter was entering her teen years, and she was always a very shy kid, and she was a follower. And I, because of my own childhood, left my doors open for anybody that needed, any one of her friends that didn't have they were welcome to my place. And I don't necessarily regret that, but in retrospect, it kind of set in motion a few things. So my daughter innocently sneaking outside of outside at night, one night she sneaks out and she ends up at a place with some guys, and she was sexually assaulted, and that was horrible. I mean, it set in motion the end of our lives essentially. She would start cutting. She wouldn't get out of bed. She wouldn't even get off the sofa. She stopped going to school. She was so horribly depressed that I was devastated, because I had always told myself as a kid who was sexually abused that the one thing that I was never going to let happen was my children would not, this generation would be spared, because even my own mother had been, abused by her father. So I didn't cope well. I tried to get her to go to counseling. We'd sit a whole hour and she wouldn't speak in the entire hour. I mean, therapist is like, I've never seen anything like this. And I was devastated. And around that time, interestingly enough, I knew my triggers and I knew my tendency towards addiction. So if someone would have told me, don't take this because of that, I would have been like, definitely I won't touch it. I knew what not to do. I did not want to fall in that trap. And I never even took Tylenol unless I had to be hardcore. I had to be very, very sick to even think about taking Tylenol. Well, I ended up, one night I'm like running down the stairs at night, and I'm like, I still do this to this day. I'm like skipping the steps, laying on the floor. And I did it that night, and I ended up on my butt and my back. And it was the first time in my life I'd experienced pain like that, where I felt, I was entering my 30s, and I'm like, oh my God, it's over. I thought my back was broken. It was severe pain, but I was like, I got this. And went a couple of weeks, and it wasn't getting better. Went into a month, and at that point, I'm wearing 2-inch heels into the office. And finally, it was so bad because it was that sciatica pain. I was in agony, like every step, sleeping, nothing was comfortable. There was a girl in my office, and I don't think to this day, I don't think she's very happy about me sharing this part, but it was innocent. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep before that, and she would have the samples in her car. And she's like, "Here, Katrina, you know, take." She was very clear to tell me to only take one because she said they were powerful. This that. I was like, okay. I didn't know what she meant by powerful, but so I took it home, and occasionally I would have a glass of wine at night. And so that night I did it, and I said, if I'm going to take a pill for pain, because I have a high tolerance for pain, I'm taking more than one. So I took the 2 in the pack, and with the wine. And you know, people say instant addiction. I mean, it was psychological instant for me. I could cope with the pain of my daughter. I could cope with, you know, all the stress of running a household, because by then I was separated, you know, done with that relationship. And you know, I was an overachiever, so I was trying to manage all this. Anyway, fast forward, I go to the doctor and prescribe. And before you know it, you know the story, how it goes. And I can't do the habit, end up reuniting with an ex from my past who had a criminal history. He's more daring than I would have ever been. And he's like, hey, these prescriptions in the state of Virginia, I don't think they're doing them anymore, but they're the paper prescriptions. And he's like, I bet you could do this on the computer. And I'm looking at him like, are you crazy? I'm not type that would even steal bubblegum, for real. I just, breaking the law wasn't my thing. But he talks me into it, and I'm like, well, if I do it, you're walking in and I'm not doing it. Lo and behold, I do it and it works. And you know how that goes when you can walk out with 280, you know, oxys, whenever, and you have a couple of doctors who aren't doctors, they're physician's assistants, and they don't care about you, and they're charging you $300, you know, a visit. Well, I still had to continue to go to the doctor, you know, so I got caught on one of them writing for that clinic, and that clinic realized at that point that I was not well. They ended up calling the cops on me. I show up for an appointment, and the cops are there to arrest me. Instead of telling me, hey, we need to deal with this addiction thing, they say, hey, when you get out of jail, we'll continue to treat you. So when I come back, I'm bonded out, I come out. First time I'd ever been in jail. It was brief, so I went in and out. They end up putting me on a once a week schedule. So they up the amount of money I have to spend, but then double my prescription. Well, by then I'm like on, I don't know, between the illegal prescriptions and whatever, I'm doing every bit of 40, you know, 80 milligram oxystillated, you name it. To kind of speed this up, it started getting out of hand. Obviously, I couldn't run all these prescriptions then, and neither could he. So sadly, you know, I had amassed a group of people that were doing it, and I was coaching them on how to do it, writing the prescription, splitting it with them, watching them go in and all that. And some of them are still friends with me today. I'm still on Facebook, and I'm struggling to help some of them still. And that is it's hard for me. Well, my daughter, my kids were not into that scene at all. They didn't want any part of it. And, you know, these things turn out eventually. It all came to a head. Before I knew it, I was like facing multiple charges, and they were looking at kingpin charges for me. And of course, I laughed because I thought, this is ridiculous. I mean, they show up one time to arrest me. And by that time, you know, my house has been foreclosed on, because I'm having to speed through this story. Foreclosed on, this, that, and the other. And cops show up at the hotel room that we're staying in, and they're accusing me of doing things that I'm not doing in front of my son. By then, he's almost 18. My daughter's an adult by then. And it was humiliating, devastating. And I started going to like the hospital to seek help. I even went to a doctor for Suboxone, but he ended up giving me Suboxone, and I took it within 4 hours of my last, you know, because I couldn't tolerate withdrawals. You know, it comes to a head, and the next thing you know, I've got a detective that's on my butt and thinks I'm public enemy number one. And I end up in the jail once, twice. They keep letting me out, and by the third time, they weren't letting me out. And by the third time, the night before, my daughter, it was interesting because I was like, I'm at the end. I can't do this anymore. And I was in withdrawal. And my daughter's like, come on, Mom, just go ahead and do it. I'll walk it in. And I was like, my heart and soul were like, no, but my body and my, that addiction. And I was like, okay, fine, go on. And she did it. And the next morning I got a call from the detective. He's like, where were you last night? And I knew then, jig was up, but he put a warrant on my daughter too. And that was hard on me. So I was ready. I wanted to kill myself. So I took all I had left. And I didn't do the trip because my tolerance was too high. The cops show up. They're pulling me out of the house. And I don't remember anything else. I remember waking up a couple of days later. And I'm kind of sitting there muddled, and I'm signing my name. And it's my son's 18th birthday. I realized that as I'm putting a date there. And I'm being held up in arraignment by a couple of people behind me, officers, and I have the turtle suit on because I must have said something about trying to kill myself or whatever. And it was humiliating. And then the next memory I have is hardcore withdrawal. I believed I was going to die. I was wishing for dead. I was hallucinating. It took me about good 3 weeks or so to get through that. And to be honest with you, I didn't get through it until probably 7th or 8th month then. About the 6th month into this, I'm starting to tell myself, okay, I can do it differently. Started on the fence, but then I hear that my daughter has started using. And I'm in denial. I knew she's gotten a prescription for Xanax. I'm like, no, there's no way because of me. There's no way. And then I find out she's shooting up. And I said, now that's BS because my daughter's terrified of needles. There's no way. And it was true. And by the time I found out about it, it was about a Thursday, and I get on the phone with her, and I know that she's very naive and very childlike, and I knew she wouldn't understand the risk. And then 2 days later, I'm called down to intake, and they deliver the news that she's virtually brain dead. And they kept trying to resuscitate her. The next morning, she passed. Well, after that, the good woman at the jail, Lambert, she ended up getting me out on a furlough to be able to deal with my daughter's funeral. And here's the part that gets, stressful part of this, because I'm out and I'm like, I have nothing to lose. Well, I have my son. Yes. But, people talk about it, they would have killed themselves. And of course, I know that if I'd have been out, I would have as well. But by that point, we're having to do the funeral service, whatever. And I get a hold of some money, and I go out and I use it to get 10 Dilaudid or heroin, whatever I could get my hands on. And I have to come back in a couple of weeks to be sentenced. And when I went back for sentencing, I wasn't supposed to do any more jail time. I had done the 8 months, and I get in front of the judge, and they renege on me and give me 2 years, 17 years suspended, 5 years probation, and a $52,000 fine for something. To be honest with you, that was not my fault. It was the person I was with, and I was in complete denial, shock. I was angry, and I get back to the unit, and I'm at this, I have nothing to lose. Fortunately, the jail got me through all that, got me out into work release, and I ended up working at IHOP. And when I heard Ben talking about the work release, let me tell you what I did. I used that. I didn't get to go to treatment. I didn't go to a drug dorm. I didn't do anything. I ended up using that and nothing else. And I literally put on blinders and that apron. And I came back to that unit every day smelling like pancake syrup. But I worked my butt off. And then before long, I was promoted to manager. And that was it. And I was like, I'm going to get the heck out of here and start doing regular work. I ended up getting to go on the ankle bracelet eventually. And then, over some time, I was able to get back into my profession. But fast forwarding this on the peer support thing, how that came out, and what I do for myself for recovery, right, is I did go back into counseling because I needed that. I needed trauma counseling, and I was court ordered to do groups like AA and NA. So I did all that. I even did Celebrate Recovery. I sponsored, an individual. I had a sponsor. But after a couple of years, I was always a private person. For me, it was a challenge. I think it's a great program, and I don't believe anyone should not try these things, at least try them, and work the program. I'm not saying you have to necessarily incorporate it for the rest of your life, but I did the counseling, like I said, the work ethic, whatever, made myself accountable. But I was in a toxic relationship. I love him dearly, but and I never imagined myself being that person that would help others. I never, ever imagined. I didn't go into recovery and say, yeah, I'm going to go help other people. Hell no. I was not that kind of person. The FBI had come to me in 2012, and I thought they were investigating me for more charges, and they kind of were, but it ends up turning out that we ended up, they asked me to participate on a documentary, and I did, and it was the day that it was being screened. I was screening it, and I was like, I don't want to do this, because they had gotten a hold of the footage of my daughter, and that heartbreaking comment about how could you do this to your daughter, and it was kind of out of context, and I was like, everybody's going to hate me. I'm going to be, villain. I'm going to take a lot of hate, and I really can't take that right now, because my children were my life, and people who knew me knew that. And all I ever wanted was to provide for them, And when they did some of the first screenings, and afterwards, and then online, I started getting feedback from mothers who were like, thank you for explaining this, thank you, it was so supportive, overwhelmingly. It wasn't 100% positive. In fact, my son, he was in the Air Force and studying to be an aerospace engineer. He's like, Mom, there's a lot of hate out there. How do you even handle it? Some of the comments. And I was like, because it's minute. And most of the time, people that were being hateful didn't understand, like, often those people were angry at an addict or had some other issues. And when you broke it down that way, it almost 100% of the time they'd end up friending us. But today, what I have learned is, especially in this peer profession, which I ended up accidentally falling into, but apparently was made for, is I've always been real passionate, and I've always loved people, but I never knew there was something else that I know the two of the speakers said that really resonated for me. I never known love, or I never had the capacity to love like I did after I had my daughter. And when I'm with an individual, I'm working with a family, I know it's hard to believe, but at that moment, well, you guys understand, but at that moment, I'm feeling what they're feeling. I know, I've been there, and I know that no one else understood what I felt, and I feel genuine love for them. And feeling that, and knowing the countless people have lost my daughter, her best friend, her other best friend, girls alone, it gives me this fire, and this anger, because I've seen waste. I've been on the inside and seen politicians that I normally would have respected. I've seen stuff happen, and I'm like, the veil's been lifted, and it's infuriating. And when I'm working with people, what I tell them is, every time I see someone isolating, I'm like, this ain't gonna work. I keep myself accountable by being so freaking transparent. It's probably annoying to everybody. But I went from being ultra private when I was back in the day, all my life, like super private. My kids, we were like the mob. Like, nobody knows what happens in this house. So much so that by the time I was in jail, my daughter died, my closest friends, even my family, my sisters, all of them will tell you, they get a call that Christian's died and that Katrina's in jail. And I'm like, what the hell? We didn't tell our secrets. We kept everything to ourselves. But now I'm transparent. I write it, I say it, I make myself connect to people, because I have a tendency to isolate out my privacy. I continue with psychiatry, with counseling, and I throw myself into this work of service. And if you don't do that, you won't make it. If you don't hold yourself accountable to other people and connect to others, I've seen people try to do it other ways. I don't care what else you do, but if you don't do those two things, you're not going to make it. So.
Happy Halloween, Katrina. Happy Halloween. Thank you very much for your powerful impact and your story. We are going to take about an 8-minute break. And we will be back on a little bit before
Okay, so
7:15.
we just get out of
So
the
we will
screen here. And
guys, yeah, we'll see everybody back in at about 7:13.
Yeah, all the folks that spoke, they can just come back on their regular Facebook page. They don't have to stay in the screen. So thank you. See you in a few minutes.
They're gone.
Yeah.
The Chesterfield House could absolutely be an opportunity for you to start this new journey in your life. My name is Jillian Knight, and I am the Director of Female Programs here at the McShem Foundation. We're super excited about our female program house out in Chester, Virginia. That is where the program female participants stay. They have their own sections where they have a group room, they have an exercise room. Also, we have wellness that goes out there and does exercise with them. We have yoga once a week, and we have volunteers, staff members that go out throughout the week and do groups.
With the intensive program that we provide in our women's housing, it does give you a wide range of opportunities, a wide range of services. In the past, when we had the women's intensive house near the recovery center, and the women were coming up to the recovery center with the male who were intensive, we would find that they were more, they were shy, so to say, or they were, as eager to open up on what truly was bothering them. They wouldn't share or anything of that sort. Now that we have the intensive program where the women are only women in that group, we find that they're sharing more. They're actually building a better network with each other because they're only focused on each other, not having to worry about the males. And we just find that it gives them a chance to be themselves a little bit more, and it gives them a chance to actually learn about themselves. While they were down there, they're actually, having time to focus on themselves and not worry about their surroundings or trying to impress anyone. And again, they're just getting to know each other better and building strong networks amongst other women. A lot of people who come to us have that traumatic past, and a lot of them have situations where males have caused trauma to them. So this gives them an opportunity to try to work through that before they're actually just interacting all day, every day with a male.
So if you're a female who is looking for recovery, our Chester House has an amazing opportunity for you to, get your foundation in recovery and to build a network of women and learn different things. This could definitely be an opportunity for you to start a new journey in your life.
And it's the reward though is seeing you guys, seeing people like Miss P coming back because she wanted to. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. But seeing women get their children back, seeing you guys, develop relationships. That's what wakes me up in the morning and kicks me to come to McShen. And with the days I want to give up, life is just too hard. That's the shit that keeps me going. You guys, and seeing our alumni, and a million stories I could tell you about awesome women that have come through McShen and where they're at now. I am the CEO of the McShen Foundation and a woman in long-term recovery since May 27, 2007. I have not used drugs or alcohol. Woo-hoo! Thank you so much to the Richmond Times-Dispatch and all of our voters for Getting the Heard podcast. Those podcasts are amazing. Not only has it helped thousands upon thousands of people in their recovery, as well as family members, but it has helped me in my personal recovery. I get to listen to them now in my car through Spotify and iHeartRadio. And it's just really, really important for us to be innovative in the addiction field and the recovery community. So when COVID hit, we had to be innovative. We really had to think of what can can we do to reach people that cannot go to 12-step meetings, smart recovery, faith-based, whatever, that we're shutting down constantly. So we were innovative here at McShin. Let's start podcast. So with Todd, John, Alex, and some other staff, we all just kind of jumped in who can do what. And with Todd's lead and John's lead, the podcasts have been amazing, and we're still doing them today. So I want to thank you for all of your votes and all of your energy and all of your support of our mission of healing families and saving lives. Thanks.
One thing we do here, we always educate our participants. I want you to leave here after your 30, 60, 90 days or however long you stay and leave. I want you to be educated about the disease of addiction, about substance use disorders, what you need to do to personally recover. But I want you to know why we don't have the support we should have. I want you to know where all the funding goes, what the thinking is of our culture, why we're the way we are. And just for the record, everybody put their right hand up. I hereby deputize each and every one of you as an ambassador to be facing risks of recovery from here on out. You've just been deputized. You just became ambassadors of a recovery movement, an authentic recovery movement. What authentic means is by people in recovery themselves. This is our call to action. Well, we're going to have fun tonight. I can tell, man. Welcome back to Care Talks Part 2. I hope everybody had a wonderful break and wonderful marketing tools there. And the first half was incredible. I see everybody showed up. I see Jim is upside down on my screen, but that's cool. I've worked with that before. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Everything working? Good. Hey, we ran a little over on the first half, so we're just going to really jump right into this. But I just want everybody to know that all these care talks we do, we obviously record them, but all these talks go into jails and prisons across America, the ones that have those tablets in their cells, and we push out a lot of content at no cost to these institutions. And the Care Talks is getting the most views by the folks inside the correctional facilities. And I'm talking, they're getting tens of thousands of views all across America. So you're talking to an incredible population. Not only the folks tuning in tonight, the folks that have access, all across America and UK and English-speaking parts of the world, but this is becoming very popular amongst the correctional institutions. So welcome, y'all, all change makers. First up on my list tonight, I have Kelvin. And Kelvin's out of Connecticut. Kelvin Young, he's this incredible, healthcare. I understand you do a lot of healing and
Yes.
you're into yoga and stuff like that. And that's incredible stuff. I mean, I totally love it. When especially in jails when they come in the pier and they yell yoga, and all these burly men get their yoga mats and they go to the chapel. I mean, it just tears me up, man. I'm in the middle of one of my best hope shots, and they get up, go to yoga, man. So, but anyway, without further ado, from Connecticut, let me introduce Kelvin. Give him hell, Kelvin.
John, it's so good to see you again. And honesty, you're doing so much incredible work down at the McGill Foundation. So thank you so much for having me tonight. Again, my name is Kelvin Young, and I'm a certified sound healer, which I have opportunities to offer sound healing sessions to different people from all walks of life. I have opportunities to go into prisons, addiction treatment centers, mental health centers, colleges, universities, and different places around the country. I'm also a community health worker at Intercommunity Healthcare in Hartford, Connecticut, which I work with returning citizens coming back to the community and connect them to our primary care, behavioral health services, as well as addiction recovery services. But one of the most important things for me that I love to share, that I think is important for me to share, is I'm also a person that's in sustained recovery, which means I haven't used alcohol or any other drug to deal with my emotional distress since March 6, 2009. And for me, after many years of battling with depression, anxiety, and drug addiction, I found freedom from alcohol, from marijuana, from cocaine, from heroin, and even prescription opiates like Oxycontin, Vicodins, and Percocets. And I began my healing journey in a drug treatment program within prison. And it was within this prison program that I learned about the transformative powers of yoga, meditation, sound healing, even creative expressive arts like poetry and journaling. And I had a lot of misconceptions about yoga and meditation, especially doing it in prison. But I know the things I was doing prior to going to prison, it wasn't working for me no more. So I had to try something new. I had to try something different. So I had to step out of my comfort zone and utilize meditation and sound healing as a vehicle to go within, because I truly do believe that healing begins from within. I was able to find a sense of calmness and inner peace, even being in a very hostile and restrictive environment such as prison. But most importantly, I was able to understand the root causes of my experiences with addiction. And from my lived experience, I learned that it was the unhealed emotional pain that I experienced in my life, the unprocessed trauma that I endured, and the toxic chronic was that reaching for something outside of myself to find a sense of relief from that distress. And for me, in heroin and prescription opiates, and it worked for a while until it didn't work anymore and got caught up in that very vicious cycle of addiction. And I wasn't able to see that very vicious cycle that I was in. But the people that truly had my back, my family, my true friends, was able to see that very vicious cycle that I was in. And I'd like to share a poem that I wrote while I was in the drug treatment program within prison, because I found that expressive arts are a great tool for me to really process the raw human emotion that I suppressed for many years under the influence of alcohol and other drugs. And there was a lot of drugs in prison, just like it was anywhere else, But I made the choice not to use anymore because I was sick and tired of being in the prison and laying in my bunk bed. I decided to make some changes in my life. And my daughter, she was my inspiration for me to find that inner motivation to go within and take advantage of all the different programs that was available while I was in prison. So having that in mind, I took advantage of all the programs, all the services, and the drug treatment program was one of the most powerful ones for me because I was in a program for 4 months. Then after being in the program, I was hired to be what they call the peer mentors, helping other people that was incarcerated with me to help them with their addiction in prison as well too. And the counselors, they went home. at 4 o'clock. But we were there 24/7, dealing with the negativity from the COs, being in a very toxic and negative environment, dealing with other people incarcerated with me with their own issues and own problems. So it was good to have someone there to run the groups, to run the 12-step meetings, to have someone to talk to. Because I lost different relationships when I was in prison. I lost family members when I was incarcerated, different events that I wasn't able to go to. I was behind people. That aspect of peer support there was very powerful. And going back to the tools that I've learned, such as the yoga and the meditation and the poetry and the creative expressive arts, it was very therapeutic for me because it helped me to address the root causes and able to put it out on paper. And it's something about putting what's in here and what's in here on paper, pen to paper, that's very healing, very therapeutic. And the name of this poem that I wrote while I was in a drug treatment program in prison is called Eyes of a Silent Sun. Is it a lost soul with no control, trying to be free? As I look into the mirror and stare into my eyes, I see all the anger and self-hate, hypocrisy and lies. I see resentment, frustration, embarrassment, and pain. I see jail bars and fancy cars as I cruise down memory lane. I see the feelings I repressed, going back to childhood. I need to let go of those feelings. I would if I could. I see the hurt that I caused to the ones I love the most. I see my brothers. I see the good and bad times that I experienced in my life. But it's so hard to let go of all that bitterness and strife. There's a sense of sadness when you look into my eyes, like the ones you see when a close relative dies. But this death is not physical. It has to do with the soul. It's that morbid feeling we get when our spiritual energy is low. It's like nothing matters anymore, like that day when I was fired, feeling depressed and weak. Can't sleep, but I'm so tired. I'm pain from that cloud that keeps following me. Sometimes I think I'm insane. But when I look out the window and see the beauty of the lake, it reminds me of good times, like when I was 9 and things were fine. And with the sunrise, I can feel the presence of the Creator. When I look out my window, I see me in the beauty of nature. I'm a part of God's creation, nature, and humanity. The loving spirit that's in Jesus is also in me. So I learned to love myself and others just for who we are. And I learned all about this love looking out my window with jail bars. And for me, behind bars in prison. And by practicing meditation, practicing yoga, I was able to go within and connect to the shame and guilt that often keep people like ourselves in a very vicious cycle of addiction. But I was able to move past that shame and guilt and connect to the true essence of who I am. And I believe the true essence that each and every one of you are. That essence I'm talking about is that unconditional agape love. Now, to me, love is more than just a human emotion. Love is an energy, it's a vibration. And I believe it's our natural state of being. So once I truly understood that the same loving divine essence that created the sun, the moon, the stars, all the beauty of nature, it created me, created each and every one of you. And that helped me to shift my mentality, my perspective. And I believe healing also begins with the planet. And once I was able to shift my worldview and really from a victim mentality, oh, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a convicted felon, I'm a high school dropout, I'll never amount to nothing, to more of an empowered mentality that I'm a person that's in recovery from alcohol and other drugs. And I want to get metaphysical, esoteric, understand that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I truly do believe that I learned so much from my so-called negative experiences. And I can sit here today and say I'm grateful for all of my experiences in my life, my experiences in prison and incarcerated. I want to be the man that I am today. You know, when I think about it, how can we truly appreciate the sunshine without experiencing the rain in our lives? How can we truly appreciate the good times in our life without experiencing the so-called negative times in our life? And like a beautiful flower, it needs both the sunshine and the rain in order to grow. And I believe the same concept applies to us as human beings. We need all our negative experiences as well as our positive experiences in order to grow in our lives. And I learned so much from that experience of being incarcerated. And I was always part of that recidivism statistic. I was able to do the inner work and really start to heal. I was able to find freedom from alcohol and other drugs. And I learned so much from that experience. And one of the many things I learned for myself is that, to me, addiction is a human experience, not a human identity. Because behind the so-called addict, behind the so-called alcoholic, is a human being that experiences a significant amount of trauma, emotional distress, and toxic chronic stress, and looking for a sense of relief from that distress. And we live in a culture and a society that conditions us to reach for something outside of ourselves when we're dealing with any type of pain, whether it's the physical pain or emotional pain. I know as a kid growing up, if I ever had a toothache or a headache, I was conditioned to reach for aspirin and Tylenol. And I used a physical painkiller, such as Oxycontin, Vicks, and Percocets to deal with an emotional pain. And like I said before, it worked for a while until it didn't work. And I got caught up in that very vicious cycle of addiction. And I truly do believe that life is about learning, growing, and evolving. I learned from my so-called negative experiences, and I gained so much knowledge from the wisdom and knowledge from all the information to evolve. So as a result, I became more consciously aware of the choices I make in my life. And today, I sustain my health and my recovery by eating a plant-based diet, because I believe what we consume in our bodies does affect our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. I practice sound healing on a consistent basis to bring me to a place of calmness, relaxation, and relieve stress. I spend quality time in the beauty of nature. I think nature is one of the most underutilized antidepressants out there. I listen to uplifting and relaxing music. Music always been very therapeutic for me. It's been my therapy for many, many years. And also see a psychotherapist as well, too, to help me to process the trauma and emotional pain that I experienced in my life as well, too. And also different types of body movement, whether it's ecstatic dance, whether it's yoga, qigong, going for a walk, going hiking, swimming, all those different practices help me to move my body, get the energy flowing, get the chi moving, and building healthy relationships in my life. Because I believe that connection is the cure for feelings of isolation, loneliness, depression, and different other types of emotional distresses that we experience in our life. So I really incorporate a holistic approach to addiction recovery. And I know that, I'm grateful. It's been over 11 years since I found freedom from alcohol and other drugs. And I know there's over 24 million people that's in long-term sustained recovery. And I'm so honored to be one of them. And thank you so much for this opportunity to share my experience, strength, and hope, and ways to heal from addiction with all of y'all tonight. So thank you.
Todd, you got some creepy sound going tonight, man. Normally we have applause, but Kelvin, you're an incredible young man. So impressed to hear you share.
Thank you, John.
Awesome job. Hey, for the rest of you guys, when you run out of your time, we just so you know, we flash a 2-minute warning, and then when we go to the full screen, that's when it's time to wrap up. Kelvin did outstanding on that, though.
Thank you, brother.
I got my board members will text me going, John, and honestly, great job tonight with the speakers, man. Honestly, you did a great job tonight. Hey, next up on my list is going to be Alex Bond, and Alex is one of like those massively, rapidly launching what I call newcomers. I think he's got a year, give or take a little bit, but the man has exploded on the scene, and not only recovery, but he has absorbed that face and voice of recovery, the recovery movement, the peer support specialist realm. I mean, the man has done absolutely amazing. So without further ado, we got Alex Bond right here in Richmond, Virginia. Go take it away, Alex, man.
Thank you for the introduction, John. My name is Alex Bond. I am an administrative assistant and certified peer recovery specialist officially like a week ago at the McGill Foundation. More importantly, I am a person in recovery from a substance use disorder. My recovery date is September 23rd, 2019. A bit about me. I received a DUI a week before on September 14th, a second DUI on September 23rd, and was told that I would be held without bond because I was a danger to society at that point in time. After staying in jail for a couple weeks, I was bonded to the McGill Foundation with zero information on what it was, what I would be looking forward to, and more than likely at the time, what I was dreading, which was facing the consequences of my actions. I came in with the intent of a tolerance reduction program. And at the end of the day, I just kept trying to be positive, finding more things to do. And over time, found out who I was in general, found out that I had some serious trauma in my life, found out that I needed to get over that and that I could be a productive member of society as long as I abstained and was in recovery, working on myself throughout this journey. While I was in the program, I was given numerous opportunities, but also worked toward numerous opportunities. I don't think that, recovery is unearned. It does take one day at a time, but I think other people saw things in me that I didn't always see. I can be really hard on myself at times. I can be my own worst critic. But I think that these opportunities gave me responsibilities and purpose in life that I've never found before. Prior to recovery, life was a party and I wanted to be in the middle of it. But now life to me is, the relationships I have with people. Being a father, being a son, being a coworker, being on, McGill, like Richmond Times Dispatch #1 podcast, I would never have imagined. But the fact that other people saw that I could do something like that and was given that sort of opportunity has really given me a phenomenal sense of purpose. I've been recently passed the examination to be an official certified peer recovery specialist. I now work in recovery full time, which my last job was being a bartender. So I don't think you could imagine two more polar opposite things. And that was due to recovery and finding out who I was. Who I am is a combination of strengths and weaknesses. I have oscillated with a sense of self-worth that either is wildly overconfident or wildly lackluster. Finding that confidence and being able to utilize it well without being arrogant is something that I still can struggle with to these days. I can be irritable because I have so much on my plate, because that's how I recover, is by consistently being busy and keeping my mind off of things. But at the same time, I can avoid conflict at times. I can run toward conflicts because I'm a problem solver, and not every problem needs to be solved by me. We're talking about removing the masks, and it is not always my responsibility to remove your mask for you. And just as the other way around, I have to find out who I truly am in my recovery. And a lot of that has taken time. As John mentioned, I am still very new to this. This is my first time in recovery. I've tried abstaining and being sober and, working no program. That doesn't exactly work. But my program includes helping people to the fullest and best of my ability with actual compassion. I remember talking to my mom on the phone, like crying because I thought my heart was like made of steel. I was so like deep in active addiction that my selfishness just had me kind of like feel like I was treading water, or maybe even drowning in self-loathing. And now I've found an ability to help people without even knowing that I'm doing it sometimes, or to a point where I don't even think about it. It's kind of second nature. I don't get asked to speak often, and even something like this to someone on a podcast should be easy, but I'm not usually really good at talking about myself or my journey. I pretty much watch how other people operate and then try to do what they did. If someone is walking in a certain direction and they're having a blast doing it, then that makes sense to me. I've been able to have a lot more fun now that I'm in recovery, doing things that I wouldn't imagine doing. If I was, playing disc golf or playing music or working on music, all of that stuff was while I was using. And so now I have new associative memories with those certain things to where I associate them with recovery. I have a wonderful network of people that I talk to daily. And more and more people just reach out to me. And that helps me out a lot. It's not easy. It's still a long way to go, but I'm just glad I know more who I am today. And I'm still finding out more and more things that I do like and don't like, but they'll come in passing. Step work definitely helps for me personally. Surrounding myself with people who know better than me, because I can be a know-it-all. So having someone around me that says you don't is very helpful. And, moving forward, doing stuff like this, I was kind of dealing with, I had to, I don't know, I dealt with a couple situations in the last 48 hours that didn't exactly test my recovery, but test my patience, which could test my recovery vicariously. And, speaking about it helps more than anything else, especially when I don't want to. A lot of times I just want to clam up and solve the problem myself because it's my problem. And that's not a healthy way to think. Reach out to someone if you're struggling, do something productive, keep yourself busy and be positive is like the only kind of advice that I would give. I don't know if people are keen on taking advice from someone with as little clean time as I might have, but I've been happier than I've been in a long, long time. And it's because of different opportunities that pop up that I grab and then run with. Another one of these simple opportunities was when I was still early in my recovery. John was a part of a steering committee for a nonprofit called the International Recovery Day. And him and one of my coworkers, Nathan, said, "Do you want to do something with this?" And I was like, "Sure. I don't have anything better to do." And ended up getting 85 buildings across the nation, like lit purple. And it was just something cool that I could look back at and say, if I could put my mind to something, it could help something so much bigger than me and other people that it makes it so much worth it. And all it takes is a little bit of energy and can-do attitude. I've never really considered myself the hardest working person in the world, but if I put my mind to something, I'll be a perfectionist and try to do it to the best of my ability. I really appreciate you letting me speak here. I also don't think I'm a great sharer, but when other people boost me up in that sort of aspect, it humbles me a little bit at the same time. I'm just trying to do the right thing, honestly. And I really appreciate the time and letting me share. And that's kind of all I got, honestly. Thank you very much, y'all.
Oh, I love the old witch there, man. Alex, thank you so much. And yeah, I saw Katrina make a comment. You're the purple dude? Yep, Alex is the purple dude, man. The nation went purple. Thanks to Alex in part. Our next speaker, Jim and McGill, all the way down from Little Rock, Arkansas. Now Jim is a character. I got to pre-warn everybody here. I went down there and got to see Jimmy in action. And it's not every time you get to walk into a jail cell and speak to a population of inmates. And you're in there with a guy who used to sleep in the back bunk in the corner. And now he's the tip of the spear in the state of Arkansas Department of Recovery. He's like the lead peer in the whole state. And man, Jimmy, you've done a marvelous job organizing the peer world down there. I've seen it firsthand, the work you do and the massive amounts of people you got involved in recovery down there. And I got to say, my hat's off to the state of Arkansas. I think they might be ahead of the curve on really perfecting the peer supports throughout the state, all because of you, Jimmy, and the guy who hired you, which I think is the governor. But anyway, I ain't gonna take up more of your time. You now got sideways on me. You're no longer upside down, so we got a little improvement here. You look pretty good sideways too. So big warm welcome for Jimmy McGill from Little Rock. Take it away, Jimmy. Jimmy, you're on mute, buddy. I can tell you what he's probably saying. Hi, I'm Jimmy McGill. I don't know what to tell you about the sound.
Okay, I found it. My bad. So I did a lot of drugs. So let me just say that. I'll keep coming back. Absolutely. Thank you, John, for that awesome introduction. Really proud of Arkansas. I cannot take that credit, though. That's a we thing. It's not a me thing. We've got an amazing recovery community down here. We all share one thing in common. We remember that desperation. We remember that feeling of gratitude when we found freedom from addiction. So all the peers here, they were naturally on fire for speaking out and sharing recovery and inspiring hope to a group of people that society had deemed unreachable and unteachable, right? Like normal, productive people, by that definition, had written us off. And so the success of the peer movement is definitely not due to any one person in Arkansas. It is, the Stacia Warmans, the Brett Franks, it's the Bonnie Striblings, it's the Wade Carters, it's all of them. The Joseph Cruzes, the Paula Cunninghams. So if you're in Arkansas and you're a peer, we love you, we're proud of you. But if you're anywhere in recovery, sharing your recovery, allow me to say thank you. We need you. You're the proof that people should not give up on us. And so, yeah, with that said, my name's Jimmy McGill. I'm in long-term recovery from the disease of addiction. Like most of you guys, my addiction stemmed from childhood trauma. I can tie it all the way back to childhood neglect, abuse, abandonment issues. I can tie it, to pain, humiliation, and embarrassment, right? Like I was a victim of sexual abuse. My father was a person of addiction. My grandfather was a man that died from alcoholism, which is simply addiction to alcohol. And so I'm a third generation, right? Like it's truly a family disease. If by chance you're watching this and you don't understand the disease concept, if you see this, allow me to shed a little light on you. Addiction is a disease that stemmed from a choice that I made. I chose to use. I did not choose addiction. My initial choice is what led to a lifetime of addiction. And if you're having trouble with that concept, then consider this. I have many friends that are HIV positive today. That's a disease that they will live with till they die. That disease stems from a choice they made to have unprotected sex or unsafe drug use, right? Like you see the point I'm making. A choice was made and the disease was the outcome of that choice. And addiction is very similar to that, right? Like a choice led to this. Addiction did a lot of things for me, but I want to say this. Initially, my drug use fixed me, right? Like, it's funny that honesty picks such an awesome theme, right? Because that's what the drugs did. They masked me, right? Like I can sum up my addiction in 2 words: escape artist. That's it. From the first time I used, it allowed me to place a mask on my face and become somebody else. I was allowed freedom. It took away the pain. It took away the hurt, the misery, the loneliness. It took away the embarrassment of being sexually molested. I was no longer battling these thoughts, right? But it also took away my freedom of choice, my family, my money. I had to borrow a lot of that. And then I just went back and reinvested it in dope. It took away everything that it was temporarily fooled me for to be my solution. And then it was gone, right? So and it was pure insanity for me to think I could take some kind of chemical, put it inside my body and find a spiritual solution, right? because that's what I needed. I was looking for a chemical solution to a spiritual problem, and I had no idea about any of that. The drug use allowed me to feel free until the day my solution became my problem. After multiple trips to prison and just 23 years of drug addiction, ultimately what happened is, in sheer desperation, I sought out a new way of life, and I asked the God of my understanding to turn my pain into passion, and I hit the gas and I never looked back. That pain did become passion, and today it's the lighter fluid for what I do. It's the lighter fluid for what every recovering person in the state of Arkansas does. They've turned their past into a purpose, just like I have, just like Honesty, John, everybody else that was here. It's no longer about being trapped in that grip of addiction. Today I've experienced true freedom, right? Like, not a temporarily escape tunnel for me, right? Like, and the mask is off now. So this is the real Jimmy. This is me without the drugs. I no longer have to depend on this illusion of a chemical induced personality, right? Like, I get to be me. And the one thing that I love to do is I love to talk about recovery. I love to share my recovery. My idea of a successful relationship in addiction was like, we're going to get along till we use. And the second we use, the paranoia kicks in, right? Like, all of a sudden, the second I used, whoever I was romantically involved with was communicating with everybody else in the room without communicating. And somehow I had figured out their language of communication, and I was fixing to get everybody, right? Like, that paranoid psychosis had done kicked in the second I used. I remember finding messages in the walls and just the insanity of it, that I would want to keep doing that stuff to me. And it doesn't matter when it comes to addiction, if you're killing yourself with one loaded syringe at a time, or if you're the little old lady popping game at the doctor shop to get a script. We all have one thing in common. We kill ourselves one use at a time. You know what I mean? And so I have freedom from that today. Those dope relationships, today I've got a successful relationship, right? Like, I'm married to a recovering woman. She is very outspoken. She tells me her mind all the time, whether I want to hear it or not. I met her at a recovery function, and she basically, for the first time in my life, checked me and said, "Pull your pants up, fix your hat. You look stupid." And I didn't know if I wanted to fight her or date her, but I'd never been talked to like that. 2-minute warning, I see you. I'm not living in a jail cell today. I've got a home. I'm a homeowner. I've started a nonprofit recovery residence that is basically the model of what a recovering residence should look like in the state of Arkansas. I'm wrapping up my first book. And shout out to Sharon Garrett for helping me edit that. It's amazing. John has just convinced me that I need to be in school. So, long conversations with John Shinhoser, and now I'm going back to school to get my degree in criminal justice, which is ironic because I oversee a number of recovery programs throughout jails, right? Like, that's my whole fight, is to reform addiction as a health issue and not a criminal justice issue. I've got my kids in my life today. I've got them both here now. I'm taking them trick-or-treating tomorrow. I'm an active parent. I'm no longer a deadbeat dad, right? Like, I've turned my past into purpose, and I've got to fix everything that I've ruined in my active addiction. I speak up, I speak out. Silence kills. The reason I share my recovery is I'm not okay with knowing what to do, knowing that my story could save someone's life. And if I sit on the sidelines quiet, I can't live with myself. What if somebody goes and overdoses because they didn't hear a message of hope and I had that opportunity? I love you guys. Thank you, Honesty and John, for the opportunity. It's been amazing.
Man, that cackle killed me. It almost sounds like my laugh. That's almost scary, man. Jimmy, thank you so much for sharing tonight. I know you had the kids and you had to rush to a spot. We really appreciate that, and you can bet that the rest of the country's watching how they do things down in Arkansas. So y'all keep up the good work down there. We're very, very proud of you. You know, we're winding down this care talk. We got one speaker left. Apparently, we're saving the best for last. He probably still on his honeymoon. We had to carve him away from the suite probably, but just an awesome young man. I watched him really bloom, not only in his recovery, but as a true warrior in the recovery movement. And we're very, very, very proud to have Sean on the show tonight, Sean Henry O'Donnell. So, Sean, without a whole lot more of my mouth, let's hear it from you. Big hand for Sean from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thanks so much, John. It's so good to see you guys. I wish that we could be together. I think the last time I was out in Virginia, it was your annual smoke out, which was so much fun, but I hope I can get out there again sometime soon. So thanks so much for having me on. My name is Sean O'Donnell. I am the Executive Director at Foundation for Recovery. We are Nevada's statewide recovery community organization, powered and led by communities of recovery all across our amazing state of Nevada. So, and I'm actually new into this role, so I'm learning a lot as I go and hearing stories from folks like Jimmy and other people that have been on this call is really inspiring because I can learn from our community across the country. So, you know, when Honesty asked me to come on and talk about recovery solutions, I didn't even know where to start. I mean, there are so many different solutions related to recovery and substance use that seem so blaringly obvious. And yet, you know, there are people out there working on it, but then there's also like a lack of investment, I think, within our communities, within the communities of people in recovery, right? And so often we hear sort of the cliche that, you know, the solution is recovery. But I truly believe that, you know, almost everyone on this call has talked about how they in some way have been supported by their peers, right? By somebody else who can speak the same language and can relate based off of shared experiences. And I think that that's one of the most valuable recovery solutions that we have in our nation. And that's what we need to emphasize, that connectedness and that similarity that each of us have. I think that also one of the main solutions is housing, like a housing first model, right? Like everyone in this country should be housed without any type of requirement to engage in any formal programs or without abstinence being a requirement. But today, what I really wanted to talk about, you know, going off of this theme of unmasking, is combating this stigma and combating implicit bias and toxic cultures within our nation. And I think that this is a very noble cause and one of the key solutions to our crisis and to elevating communities of recovery and combating that stigma. And so what does that look like? You know, growing up as like a closeted queer kid back home in the Twin Cities, I lived just like many other people with a lot of shame, right? Like I was ashamed of who I knew that I was. I was afraid, there was fear. And these feelings I held with me and carried with me ever since I was pretty much a child. So like having this like shame, guilt, and fear and living with that from being a child through adolescence, like it, of course, it's going to lead me into a direction of, you know, using substances and ultimately my addiction and that journey that I've had throughout my life. But one of the things that I felt has been so liberating is the ability to come out as a gay man. But I also translate that to coming out as a person in recovery. And for the longest time, so I've done, the 28 days of inpatient, I've done extended care programs, I've done outpatient. And this all happened, I went through like formal care and first got introduced to to the rooms and everything when I was very young, like 17 years old. And when I started, to turn my life around when I was in early recovery, and I decided I think I'm going to go to college and prove people wrong in my life. I didn't want anyone to know about my past. I didn't want anybody to know that I was in recovery, that I had all these experiences, that I've done, different things in my life. I didn't want anybody to know that, nor did I want them to know that I was living in recovery at the time. And the reason being was for the exact same reason why I was hiding for so long that I was gay. And that was shame, right? I was so ashamed of my past. And I almost felt like being in recovery was like a handicap in some respects. And I thought, people just won't understand. They're going to treat me differently. It's going to affect me, being able to get a job in life. It's going to affect me getting a partner. I'm just going to keep this buttoned up. This is a secret. I never need to tell anybody. And hopefully, I'll be able to live in recovery the rest of my life without saying anything about it to other people. And, it wasn't until I lost my ex-boyfriend of a few years to an overdose, and then also some of my close friends started dying of overdoses, that I knew that I wanted to get involved. So I started doing some advocacy work back home in Minnesota. And I started to apply what I had learned in my education, which was communications. And I started looking at other movements that have started to change the course on toxic culture in this country and implicit bias. One being is the LGBTQ movement. And I thought, how can we get to a place where people who use drugs, people in recovery, they don't feel ashamed just because they use a substance, or they used to use a substance, or they've been involved in a criminal, in the justice system, or they've experienced, homelessness, or for any of those reasons, and that, employers and family and other people have a better understanding of what so many people go through when they have these journeys in their lives. And so that's one thing that I think is one of the main solutions that we should focus on as a country, and that is setting a safe environment for people to be out in the open. And I understand that for some people, some people hold different privileges over others. And so for some people, it might be safer and more available to be open compared to other folks in this country. But I think that's a place that we have to get to. And so I think people in recovery, if we can, and many of us do this, but if we can almost spread training and education on how to take back the public narrative and how to shape our public narrative, whether that's through mainstream communication channels, like working with media, like media relations, or through expressing ourselves through, bold art forms, photography, sculpture, public demonstrations, whatever it takes to make the world and our country know that we're here and that we're not ashamed, and start to normalize this conversation. I don't want to go over too much of my time, but there's this amazing TED Talk that if anyone who's watching this is interested, I really encourage you to watch it. It's a TED Talk, and it's talking about the danger of the single story. And so what is that? Well, this woman who's giving her presentation, her name is Chimamanda Ngozi, and she is talking about this single story, this narrative that has been painted about her as an African woman who had moved to the United States, and her experiences being here, and how many people whom she had encountered had this single story of who she was as a person of color, as a woman from Africa. And one of the stories she talks about, or one of the experiences in particular, is when she was in college and her roommate was, talking to her and was like, hey, I would love to hear some of your tribal music sometime. And she handed over a CD of Mariah Carey, right? And it shows that, like, her roommate had this preset notion of who she was as an individual, right? Like, oh, you're from Africa, you must have tribal music, and that's what you're listening to, and that's all you've been exposed to, which couldn't have been more inaccurate, right? And so I pulled a few quotes from her TED Talk because I think it completely translates to the story of people in recovery and people who use drugs. And so I'm just going to read some of her quotes first. So she says that, all of our stories make us who we are, the pleasant, the unpleasant, the successes, and the failures. But to insist on only the negative stories is to flatten our experience and to overlook the many other stories that have formed us as individuals. The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is that they are not untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. And so that always has stood out to me, because how many of us have experienced stereotypes related to people in recovery, right? And that's not the full story, right? That flattens our experience. That is one part of our story. That is the negative part of the story that is told time and time and time and time again by other people. So we need to reclaim that narrative. And I think that's one of the strongest solutions and one of the strongest weapons that we have at our disposal. She also goes on and she talks about that it's really impossible to talk about the single story without mentioning an idea of power. She goes, there is a word, an Igbo word, that I think about whenever I think about power structures of the world. And the word is Nikala. Nikala is a noun that loosely translates to be greater than someone else. And like our economic and political worlds, stories too are defined by the principles of Nikali and how they are told, who tells them, when they are told, how many stories are told, are really dependent on power. So power is the ability not just to tell the story of another person, but to make that story the definitive story of that person. She says, start with the story with the arrows of the Native Americans and not with the arrival of the British, and you have an entirely different story. Start the story with the failure of the African state and not with the colonial creation of the African state, and you have an entirely different story. So it's all about perspective and who owns that narrative, and who is shaping that narrative and telling that story of us. She continues, and then I'll wrap up. Stories matter. Many stories matter. Stories have been used to dispossess and to malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Stories can break the dignity of a people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity. And I know from personal experience, I have felt that broken dignity, and I know I'm not alone in that feeling. And so we have an obligation to turn the tide by sharing our stories and by understanding how to reclaim that narrative, and really how to make our stories pervasive in modern media and in the mainstream. So I know that was a lot. I hope everyone has a wonderful Halloween. I'm super excited. We have some friends in town from Wisconsin, and we're about to go out to dinner in a few minutes. But thank you again, John and Honesty, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I've loved all the speakers.
Thank you, Sean. We love you.
Thank you.
Man.
That's not me.
Todd's having fun now, man. Hey, look, I'm going to give Honesty the last word, but before I do, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You were awesome. Sean, every time I listen to one of you guys, the girls out there from Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm amazed, man. You guys got so much game out there. Not only personal recovery movement, but just where y'all want to go, state and local and nationwide. I'm just inspired by you because I'm really honored and proud to be part of you guys out there. So thank you so much for taking time away from your Wisconsin friends. Now, look, if anybody listening wants to do a Care Talk or get on a Care Talk, contact Honesty because she does all the work. But if we get a theme for Care Talk, talk to Honesty about it. We'll probably take advantage of it. So, Honesty, last words.
Sure. Well, for tonight, last words. Thank you, everyone, for attending and watching. Super, super powerful speakers. This was amazing. Very, very heartfelt and awesome. Definitely removing the mask of addiction. So a ton of different solutions. We just want everyone to have a safe and happy Halloween as well. So thank you again. And our next one will be posted all over our social media coming some point in November. So thank you all. Have a great night. Stay safe. Bye, Sean. Thank you.
The Chesterfield House could absolutely be an opportunity for you to start this new journey in your life. My name is Jillian Knight, and I am the Director of Female Programs here at the McGill Foundation. We're super excited about our female program house out in Chester, Virginia. That is where the program female participants stay. They have their own sections where they have a group room, they have an exercise room. Also, we have wellness that goes out there and does exercise with them. We have yoga once a week, and we have volunteers, staff members that go out throughout the week and do groups.
With the intensive program that we provide in our women's housing, it does give you a wide range of opportunities, a wide range of services. In the past, when we had the women's intensive house near the recovery center, and the women were coming up to the recovery center with the male who were intensive, we would find that they were more, they were shy, so to say, or they weren't, as eager to open up on what truly was bothering them. They wouldn't share or anything of that sort. Now that we have the intensive program where the women are only women in that group, we find that they're sharing more. They're actually building a better network with each other because they're only focused on each other, not having to worry about the males. And we just find that it gives them a chance to be themselves a little bit more, and it gives them a chance to actually learn about themselves. While they were down there, they're actually, having time to focus on themselves and not worry about their surroundings or trying to impress anyone. And again, they're just getting to know each other better and building strong networks amongst other women. A lot of people who come to us have that traumatic past, and a lot of them have situations where males have caused trauma to them. So this gives them an opportunity to try to work through that before they're actually just interacting all day, every day with a male.
So if you're a female who is looking for recovery, our Chester House has an amazing opportunity for you to, get your foundation in recovery and to build a network of women and learn different things. This could definitely be an opportunity for you to start a new journey in your life.
And it's the reward, though, is seeing you guys, seeing people like Ms. P coming back because she wanted to. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. But seeing women get their children back, seeing you guys, develop relationships. That's what wakes me up in the morning and gets me to come to McGill. And with the days I want to give up, life is just too hard. That's the shit that keeps me going. You guys, and seeing our alumni, and a million stories I could tell you about awesome women that have come through McGill and where they're at now.